Faraz Shauketaly.
And a jolly good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawes Street in Colombo. And on this fairly middling morning, it's a little bit damp, but still, we've got with us Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon, who is no stranger to your screens. And this morning we're going to have a look at what the chances are for closure on matters that are affecting the ability of this government to move ahead on various matters, and of course to perhaps comment on the wider aspect of what's happening, led by the Daily Mirror headline, which says Kiriwera shooting, a 3 million contract. Let's take a look at current affairs and politics right here on Newsline, and this morning it's with Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon. Very good morning to you, Mr. Rusiripala.
Good morning to you, Faraz.
And what on earth is happening, Mr. Rusiripala? The front pages are full of this 3 million contract that has been awarded to try and snuff the life out of the unfortunate terror at the Kiriwera in Katragama.
Yeah.
Then we have another item in which the President and the Prime Minister both are being urged to halt the erroneous award of LNG tender, according to Ranjan Kasturi of the Daily Mirror. And on top of all that, Mr. Rusiripala, I was also going to ask you, what are the chances of having closure on these contentious matters that the government are facing in terms of the negativity? You know, you have the bond, you have the Central Expressway, you have the coal tender, now you have the fallout of the bond, where people, the various numbers are being bandied about, 118, 166, 66, 54, all sorts of things. And then one person is saying, well, I didn't do it. Another one says, I only got 100,000. Another one says, I only got 1 million. Then that becomes 2 or 3. Where is it all going to stop?
I think, Faraz, you have given a very big, wide roundup, to, I don't know, so many things that are coming up. But, everything points to one important factor, that we are all in a dilemma.
Yeah.
Undecided and living in expectation of something to happen, about the continuation, about the closures, about the events that are taking place, repetitions, power struggles, power crazy people doing various things. Even the shooting of this venerable priest in Kataragama. The basics for the shooting appears to be another power struggle, whether it's a contract or otherwise. What it boils down to is that somebody behind has set these people to eliminate this priest for the sake of power.
For the sake of power. Power is at the root cause.
Exactly, for some position. All these things emanate from that dirty thing, This has become so dirty for the society. Our society should now think of something beyond remaining in power. Something beyond to come to power. People should get the impression that there is something required to serve the people, for the service of the people, for and on behalf of the people, and not for and on behalf of power. This is the most important thing. I think our society now is in a dilemma with regard to this. We see most of the things just continuing, dragging along, creating a lot of suspicion and conjectures and imaginations in the minds of the people as to what should happen, what will happen tomorrow, day after. So this is a very sad state of affairs. The country is at a standstill.
This country is at a standstill.
Yes. Overall position is that.
And the further details on this, the shooting in Katragama.
Yes.
Is according to the Ceylon today by Kavindir Thomas, is that the 2 gunmen who were arrested, the teenagers. What does that say about the influence?
how desperate they are. I think they would have been going after money, not thinking of the consequences,
3 million.
Not thinking of anything. So they would have thought that they can get away with this 3 million. The whole problem is that no, these criminals, when they do it, they never think that they will get caught.
No.
They never do that, you know.
Is that the same about the people who struck at the bond, the central bank?
You said exactly what was in my mind, you know. When they planned it, when they perpetrated it, they never thought, you know, with the lack of knowledge, with the situation prevailing in the country, with the inclusiveness of the affair, they thought that, you know, this will never come to light.
But no, Mr. Rusiripala, it might be worth, even though people sometimes in their moments of madness accuse us, especially perhaps you and certainly me and others, they accuse us of overdoing it or overcooking it. But how much more can you overcook? You know, shall we just get down to the bottom of this whole thing? There are what I call 4 major people in this bond scam. There was the minister, whose name happened to be Ranil Wickremesinghe. There was the other minister, Kabir Hashim, and there was the man who was no minister, but purportedly an advisor, the flimsy description of advisor to the Prime Minister, but he was the leader of the United National Party, friend of Prime Minister Wickremesinghe, Malik Samaravikrama.
Chairman of the party.
Chairman of the party.
Yes.
And we had one more person in this whole scheme, and that was Arjuna Mahendran. And he brought along a little party accomplice, his son-in-law. Now these 5 people were the principal players. And it's about time that the people of this country, especially also those in Colombo, who seems to have forgotten all this, they need to remember that these are the people who were the centerpiece of what the AG's department said was the greatest financial scam ever since independence to afflict the people of our country. That's what they said.
Yes. You know, very strange things are being unearthed even now, Faraz. Now there is no end to this story. I don't know where this will end up.
These people who are supposedly make up the 118.
Yes.
These are what we call the sprats. We want the big fish. We want the big boys.
Yeah.
Because these people got 100,000, 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, 23 million for a car or something like that.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
These are just chicken feed.
Yeah.
It's less than what should be in the petty cash box.
Yeah.
The big boys, what happened to the money? Where are they hiding it?
Yeah.
Is it in Singapore? What is the mechanism? Why is the law and order ministry being kept under their lock and key, if you like? What are they trying to hide, Mr. Rusiripala? What are they trying to hide?
No, you see now, however small the amounts are, there is another important matter, you know, that concerns the conscience of the people. They do not want the people whom they have elected for public positions to be, dealt with in this form, gratifications of whatever sort.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the volume or the amount. But then, I think in this instance, what Mr. Ravi Karunanayake did at that time, I don't know whether he was forced to do it or did it on his own, but he left.
Yeah.
He went out of the scene.
All said and done,
yes,
we must hand it to him.
Yes.
He resigned.
He resigned.
That's whether he was pressured, whether he was this, whether he was that.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, he made a decision and he put his hand up and that was it.
No, that is, we must all respect that decision. Whatever the other things are, whatever is yet to follow from, the rising out of the commission report, so many things to be initiated against him, all that apart, he did his part. Okay, there is an allegation. I have tried to maintain my position. Now I am leaving. Now, but these people now
live another day.
Some of these people, I mean, it's a theatrical thing, you know. They are really a mockery. Some people saying that I don't know, the monies are taken for election work when there was no election. You see, that was not an election time. How can they substantiate these silly statements?
We have to look at it in another context.
Yes.
You know, these monies, when you compare to the bigger, the overall figure, and the figure of monies, unexplained monies lying in one bank account, that they found it to have come from this outfit that is at the center of this whole scam. You know, somebody's getting 100,000, somebody's getting 1 million, another's getting 3 million, and so on. This could be considered small, those components, as opposed to an overall one. But nevertheless, what we must remember is that all of this, however small, however big, it's the people's money. And now everyone seems to be conveniently forgetting this. Why? Well, just because somebody in a nice suit and jacket does it, some may say ill-fitting, but you know, the fact is that people seem to be giving them a different light. But why?
A white-collar attitude is being given.
You know, if somebody stole some mangoes or some, you know, the whole weight of the law comes after them.
The crime has no status for us. If it is a crime, it's a crime. And when a criminal offense has been done, whether it is by a white-collar person, whether it is by a person who is in high esteem, in holding high position, it doesn't make a difference. They should be dealt equally, dealt with equally. So that is what is happening. That is why the people are frustrated in this country. Even now, you see, after commission reports, after facts are being very clearly established by no other than Supreme Court judges.
And then you have the shameless statements made by Malik Samaravikrama and his friend Ranil Wickramasinghe. Malik Samaravikrama said, "Thamba Satyak Padu nae me ratata." What complete tosh. The Prime Minister said it in another language, and he said the same thing. They're hiding behind this so-called the balance of the bonds that are stuck in the name of perpetual, and the Treasury, the Central Bank are not letting go of it. But nobody, Mr. Rusiripala, is talking about that other bond, the 31st of March 2016, and the profits that have accrued from that is estimated at another 6 billion.
And that was not investigated either.
It wasn't investigated because that the term of the commission finished on the 31st of March 2016.
No, that is, although the bond transaction has taken place on the 29th and the 31st, the effect of the bond transaction falls outside the purview of that term of the commission. So therefore they were quite right in not investigating into it, but they nevertheless have made a reference to that. They have made, if you carefully look at the
and that reference is?
That they say that it is a matter that has to be investigated and found out, and the loss arising out of that could be very much more than the loss that has been estimated in the first instance.
All that's very nice, but what about proceeds of crime? The first bond is where the proceeds were made, right? And then you invest it, you end up along the way with 1.2 billion nearly in a completely separate bank account, where supposedly these were the payments, the sleaze and graft payments that went on there, right? And all of these are quite happy. There's one young man who's in remand, and they think that this is the be-all and end-all of the matter. And there's another chap who's a fugitive from justice. He's wanted for questioning. He's lording it about in Singapore or wherever he is. And the person who gave undertakings and assurances about that man's probity, that man's integrity, that man's behavior is being significantly silent. And that man who's being silent is none other than Ranil Wickramasinghe.
That's the most intriguing thing in this affair for us. You know, the crime apart, you know, the very fact that a person has been recommended to a position with lot of backing, of personal knowledge and personal integrity, and then vouching for his suitability. Now today, we are at a loss to understand where those vouchings and recommendations have gone.
And assurances
when the man is simply absconding, evading arrest by a court of law. And then when they publish books, election literature, leaflets just before the 2015 August election, in those leaflets they said, no, we are going to have a inquiry, and we will punish those responsible. We have quoted those.
Yeah.
I mean, having said all that, those are election promises.
Indeed.
Those are election. Forget everything else. A person trying to come to power gives an election promise. We will punish these people. How are you going to punish? The man has run away. Run away with the facilitation provided to him, which should not have been so.
It was, what most people don't realize is that at one point in time, the passport of Arjuna Mahendran was sort of impounded or blocked by the Bribery Commission. It'd be interesting to see on what basis that whole thing was rescinded, and how it is that Arjuna Mahendran was allowed to quietly slip away. Were they preparing the ground when he made regular departures from the country and regular appearances back in the country? And was it all a sham, him coming there in his crumpled suit, in his Maruti, or in his tuk, right? And sometimes in a larger vehicle, in his crumpled suit, and sitting at the back taking notes and being a regular appearance? Was this all a charade? Was it all to set the ground up for his disappearance?
Whereas all that appears to be today, in hindsight and retrospect, all staged affairs. No? His coming and going paved the way for him to disappear at the right time when the thing is boiling. He vanished into thin air today because his going and coming was made normal.
And no attempt made by anybody in the AG's department, certainly in open court, that I heard of and you heard of, right? As to, shall we consider the possibility of impounding this fellow's passport or restricting his movement at least until the Bond Commission report was out. But why, Mr. Rusiripala? It sounds to me like the most obvious things are just being not done. The most obvious thing that the minister that didn't do anything, he could have stopped it. He could have checked up on the conflict of interest. He could have stopped it. We would have only had the loss of the first bond and nothing would have happened about the next lot.
Whereas it is not what you and I are talking today, or what we are trying to report today. Just recall the incident when the Parliament questioned in the House, when he was not available at a certain point of time when the whole thing was flaring up. The Prime Minister's answer was, don't worry, he won't disappear like Veeratunga.
Yeah.
He has gone for a wedding. I'll get him down.
So why does he get him down now?
Where is that assurance? Where is that vouching? Where is that guarantee?
But he seems to know, but the Prime Minister seems to know a lot about, or he purports to know a lot about the Singaporean lifestyle.
Yeah.
He said he's on record, and yes, it does sound as though it's another lot of exposés against the Prime Minister, but the facts are stubborn, as Mr. Rusiripala wrote in a newspaper, and that's doing its rounds on the internet.
Yeah.
But the facts, Minister, are stubborn. And the facts are that it is this same minister who undertook at one point to vouch for Mr. Mahendran to his cabinet colleagues when they raised objections about his initial appointment to take over the remaining period of Governor Cabral's term.
Yes.
And when he went abroad, the Prime Minister is the one who said, oh, don't worry about it, he's not going to do Udayaviratunga or a Jalya, you know, he's going to, I will have him back, he will come back. And indeed he came back, and indeed he came to the commission and so on. But then he quietly slipped out. And now the Prime Minister seems to know an awful lot about Singaporean lifestyle. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago he said, oh, I don't know, I have no clue where he is.
Keep on changing.
Oh, the people, and it is his habit.
Yeah.
So close was the Prime Minister's relationship with Mr. Mahendran that he was even privy to the likes and dislikes of Mr. Mahendran, and he said, oh, Mr. Mahendran is in the habit of moving a dress, as is the policy and habit of the people of Singapore. Well, I don't know about the churn rate of Singaporeans' housing.
No, we can look at this whole thing in a bit of a, like a mock scene, you know. But what is important for us is, what is the image of the country? What is happening to the democracy? What is happening to the good ethics? What is happening to the good governance principles that they pronounced to come to power? In a situation like this, can they uphold that situation and say, well, we are doing the right thing now? Or are we justified in continuing in our positions having done these nasty things or this type of things? I mean, this is what is important, you know. The fraud has been committed. A commission has found fault with the people. They are now only trying to legally bind them, and they are disappearing.
Mr. Rusiripala, how about this? How about this? Let's test the level of the people's frustration. We challenge the Prime Minister to visit any village outside in rural Sri Lanka without his security team. Let's see what kind of reception he will get from the people out there. He can't possibly show his face. His record is one of complete and utter neglect and inaction.
Yeah. You know, this is reflected in many places. This is reflected in the party, this is reflected in the parliament, this is reflected in his work, this is reflected in the economy of the country, which he has taken complete control of. You know, in every sector and segment of the society, this want of things, lack of democratic practices, lack of good governance, lack of good behavior, lack of ethics is shown.
It is shocking. It is shocking. The lack of ethics is shocking. And it is high time that people sat up and took notice of, and that we can, and send a message to say we can see through you. We saw through the actions of this CCEM, which was nothing but a cabinet within a cabinet. Yeah. And thank God that President Sirisena has disbanded that blessed thing, the CCEM.
And I think lot of things which would have otherwise happened, you know, under that CCEM, would have come to a halt because of that step taken by the President. For us, we know it for a fact that although the President is at the receiving end of so many criticisms right now, we know he is undergoing a lot of pressure in trying to uphold certain things, you know, by remaining in a government, by continuing to be a head of a government, where things are proposed against his principles, against the things that he wishes to do for this country. You know, we are having a lot of issues and problems which I am sure he has not brought it to the society because he can't do it. But we know he is doing his best to prevent it at his level, withstanding that pressure, that amount of pressure. For example, a huge area of land in the southern province was to be given to another country on some terms which he did not agree. And although it has not become public, I think he stood against it. He stood against it. Because in this country, you know, if you only hear, now we have this waste problem in Colombo city and in all the cities. We want to transport that waste to Putlam area. You know, we want some assistance from the World Bank and the lending organizations and the countries that uphold environmental principles and rights, you know, to help us. You know what they say? No, if you dump this thing in Putlam, the Katusas and the Gembas are going to get killed. Therefore, we are not going to give you any assistance. Now, this is the extent to which the environmental concern of the world is affecting us. Now, in such a situation, when you are trying to give 50,000 acres to a country, displacing people, displacing animals, you know, and ruining the entire nature, jungles, what will the world think of us? Are these people blind to these affairs for us? And how can the president continue to uphold these things and stand on his own?
I'd like to say this just as we end. I'd like to ask the question: where are these so-called Western powers who wanted us to uphold democracy, who wanted accountability, responsibility, transparency? Indeed, where are these people?
I think
where are these statements from the various agencies in the United States, in Great Britain, in Europe, in Australia, in Australasia, from the Far East? Where indeed? Why are you being significantly silent? Where is the International Democratic Union?
I think if not for the China originality or intervention, the country would have been in a very desperate situation today. And even that was mishandled, badly handled. And I think ministers like Champaka Ranawaka, they are trying to do their best to, you know, stand like in this whole state of affairs and trying to do something meaningful. Trying to do something meaningful and practical.
Perhaps they too should have a meal with the Prime Minister, and then the next day announce that they cannot be party.
I think they should be given egg hoppers.
Yes, and then they can all get together with President Sirisena, who seems to at least show a modicum of desire to deliver to the people. And it's about time that the Prime Minister and his boys, including Malik Samarikrama, Sagala Ratnayaka, Akila Viraj, Kabir Hashim, should all realize that they've been completely inept at this. They just can't handle it. And let's go back to the people and let's see what the people have to say. Isn't that the best way forward?
Yes, it is established beyond doubt. Most certainly, people know their capabilities now. They have reached the limit. Now they have to go and go.
Rusiripala Tennakoon, how wonderful to see you on the set this morning. Thank you very much. And that's the way it was on the 18th of June, Monday, 2018, from NEWSLINE. Take care and God bless.
News First. News.